So pretty, 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 pretty. Baby girl, you are so pretty, 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 pretty. Females like you just to trick me, trick me, trick me, trick me. 'Cause baby girl, you are so easily pretty. The only reason that I can do tonight is 'cause I know you were invited. The only reason that this dress is can tight is 'cause I thought that you would like it. I'm only gone for the secret outside. Because I want you to lie. That the only reason I can do tonight is because I
Hi, this is Jessica Javens Talk, a podcast that helps you completely change your life inside out to a life you truly love. And this is season 1, and my guest today is bringing a lot of empowerment for parents. I'm a mom. I have 4 kids. So what I've learned with her is amazing, and I can't wait for her to share this with you. It's wonderful tools for parents. And she's an author, she's a teacher, and she's a volunteer. I'd like to welcome to our show today, Martha Burich. Welcome, Martha.
Thanks, Jessica. I'm so glad to be here.
Yes, I am too. Thank you so much. Can you start by sharing a little bit more about you?
Yes, you know what? Let me start with the beginning. My mother loved my brother better. Let's face it. I lived with that all my life. In fact, I had 2 older brothers, and I think she liked them both better than me. And I think that colored my life for so long. And one day, Jessica, I was on the treadmill about a year ago with a lady, and she has 2 daughters. And she said, and the daughters are like 60 now. And she said her daughter told her, you always loved my sister better. You know what, parents, if you have more than one child, get used to it. It's never going to end. I had to have something to blame. I had to have something to blame. Whatever I couldn't get or achieve on my own, I had to find something to blame. So, you know what? Just smile. Yes, dear.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for bringing that energy in. That's awesome. Thank you so much. So you did a phenomenal job here, and I really want to tap into everything that I possibly can and share this with our listeners today. So my first question to you is, with all of your experience, what would you say that parents struggle with the most?
You know what? Children learn behaviors. Well, that's such a good question. We want the best for our children. And I think that in modern times, especially in first world countries where we have so many luxuries, how lucky am I when I go to the sink and turn on the hot water and water comes out and it's hot. I mean, every day there's such a blessing. We have so many conveniences, and I think that we take so much of it for granted, and our children take them for granted even more than we do. So they just think that certain things are there. Well, my mom and dad are always there. Talk to people whose mom and dad aren't there anymore. We don't see the forest for the trees. And children, a lot of times they go to school and they think, it's just my mom. My mother was a saint. She was a saint, but I thought she was an idiot because I was a teenager and I was an idiot, but I didn't know that. So, you go to school and you start looking around and you think, well, this kid, boy, that kid's mom makes his lunches like this, and that kid's mom does this, and you don't see the whole life. You see a slice of life. You get on social media and the kids see a slice of life and they start looking at their parents like, well, gee, he got a new toy and you didn't get me a new toy. Just all this kind of stuff. So parents are constantly at this catch up, trying to play catch up with phantoms all the time. So I think that we have to be realistic, which is really difficult. It's really hard. And I think, this is true, Jessica. It's hard to see ourselves as human. And it's hard to admit we make mistakes, and it's hard to it's hard to realize that, and for our children too.
Yeah.
I'm human, you're human. We're going to have to figure this out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so easy. I don't think there's any effort that we need to do to look at the negatives, right? So as a child is growing up, that's probably just, it's part of just understanding that that's how it is. We need to be learning and teaching ourselves to look at those things and to see there's much more than what we're perceiving at that moment. So thank you for saying that. And I think that what you said, I agree with you. Like whenever I do speak to parents, I think that's the most common thing that we're dealing on a daily basis. And it's a struggle sometimes. And then there's a tendency, like me, I had the tendency for years to try to be that perfect parent. And you feel guilty no matter how good you do. You're constantly feeling guilty. And that on itself was a much of a heavy weight to carry. And I had to grow within myself to kind of be able to to improve myself and be able to be okay with not being perfect and being human, So that's a great thing. Now, what is the most important thing then? Thinking about, there's so much involved in raising a child. It's probably the biggest project there is, other than yourself, is raising a child. What would you say is the most important when raising children?
Make them do as much as they can themselves. Stop doing for your children. Stop giving them things they should get themselves. They should start having chores from the time they're a year old. 1-year-old can put socks together. She can't maybe fold them, but she can put the blue sock and the blue sock together. And he can put his dishes in the sink if you carry him over there and put his dishes in the sink. They should all have chores. They should be picking up their toys with help, etc. So children should definitely have chores. By the time they're 8, they should get a job. They should get a little job, whether it's picking up the dog poop in the neighborhood. By the time they're 10, they should be taking out the older ladies' and men's trash cans, make a little money that way. There are a gazillion ways to make money. They could be putting food in the bird feeders in the older people's homes. I mean, there are so many jobs and things. Children need to feel useful, and we have raised this whole generation of people who don't see their usefulness and their place in the world.
Wow.
And they don't understand that they have jobs to do and people need them. That, we're raised in this whole me culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it started in maybe the 30s even. I think once we started getting some money behind us and some prosperity, we started thinking, well, I've got to get that. I need more. No, we don't need more. We need to think more about other people and how we can be more useful. And, some a gal I know has a 1-year-old, and she did a test, and she would give the 1-year-old, she'd give her a toy or she'd give her a spatula. The child would pick the spatula. She'd give her a toy, or she'd give her a pot or a pan or a cup, or she would always take the thing that wasn't a toy, that didn't cost a lot of money, that they used every day. So you don't have to buy your children all these fancy toys and things. Just give them up. I remember my son playing in his diaper box. He was so happy in that diaper box.
And that taps into their creativity more than anything. And that's so empowering. I remember one of my favorite things when I was a kid is go to my grandmother's backyard and get the little plants and pretend that I was making soup or something. You know what I'm saying? And
wow.
Yeah, and it's it's one of my best memories. I probably like that more than my Barbie, So I understand. And the word useful for me really touched my heart. I don't think that I heard it in this context, and I really appreciate that you said that, because useful is beneficial for both sides. Mm-hmm. It's very beneficial because you feel empowered and your self-esteem goes up when you are useful. You become also more resilient. The number of qualities here, I'm just thinking now, it's a lot. It's a lot of different qualities that you can develop that will bring yourself to being a satisfied human being when you do that. And yes, I am a fan of chores, and I've seen different results with different people and different families depending, and you see that a lot sometimes in culture, different countries with different cultures. The ones that have the children participate more in chores and the ones that don't, oh my gosh, the results are complete opposites. One of the best empowerments that you can give to a children, I think, is chores.
Mm-hmm.
You agree?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, our lives, we need to work together to build our lives. Family is the basic unit of society. A happy family creates happy societies. You want your children to know that they have a place in the world and that they are important and that they must contribute. Life doesn't, because if they don't contribute, then they think life happens to them. Oh, this happened to me. Oh, that happened to me. No, 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 hon. You let it happen. You did this, you did that, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. So taking personal responsibility is a gigantic step forward, which
Mm,
many people haven't figured out, Jessica.
you're right. And that's why sometimes you see so many adults struggling so much too. I had a relationship one time in my life, and I saw this huge struggle just to do basic stuff, and everything was kind of perceived as work. So the person avoided it, didn't want to do it. And it was just regular day to day life things, just regular good habits. I'm not trying to say that everybody should do everything equally, but certain things, like you should be able to live in a clean place. You should be able to have proper hygiene because it's a healthy thing for you. I'm not even talking about luxury, it's just basic needs that we have. And when somebody is not able to fulfill that, or that becomes a chore, or it takes away from just having a regular successful life, is where you see, man, there's a problem here. And discussing this really came from childhood. It really came from childhood, and most of the time that's what it is. We have a pattern that we create, and we keep dragging that forward. So if the oh my gosh, how much difference would society be today if parents understood how powerful that is? And I know it's not easy. My kids don't want to do the chores. They complain. They don't do it well. I have to go there and redo it, or tell them to redo it like 3, 4 times. So it is tiring. So it's much easier just to let them play video games and me do it, because I'll do it in 5 minutes. And
Exactly.
that's the biggest mistake a parent can do. Or when a child says, please have, especially with siblings, Martha, they say, oh no, but it's not my turn. Why don't they do it? So they keep playing, that game. And I said, if you understand that if you were an only child, you would be the one doing everything.
Mhm.
So funny. So it's incredible how that can change completely the future if we just allow our children to have that healthy upbringing where they're building up their personality and responsibility. Um, Now tell me, this is something very interesting. How does parenting and addiction relate?
Oh, boy, that's such a good question. Well, usually, a lot of times parents, they I think there's somebody told me about this thing called the Mommy Wine Club or something, where moms, at the end of the day, they sit down and they've got to have their glass of wine or their 2 glasses of wine. Well, I guess, that's okay. But if you find yourself, just waiting for Friday so you can drink Friday night and Saturday night and part of Sunday, then you have a problem. And I think that if we are constantly trying to numb ourselves out with either wine or other drugs or even food, our children pick up on that. And then they develop addiction problems where they don't want to face their feelings. So feelings are tough and it's really hard to deal with them. And if we want to grow up, we have to. So this is we're dealing with a whole nother place here. I think maybe first we should just deal with trying to figure out why our children won't behave. And I
Wow.
think a lot of times they won't behave because they don't get enough attention. They're desperate for attention. And so if you find yourself drinking or doing drugs or even on your phone too much, your child is desperate for your attention. How many times have you seen that? Maybe you've been in a store somewhere and you see a little child going, Mommy, Mommy, and mom's on her phone, never listens. Daddy, Daddy, and they totally don't pay attention. They're watching a football game or whatever. So children are desperate for attention, and you know that attention is their goal. When you feel annoyed, they're constantly harassing you for attention. So if you think that that's your child's problem, you need to put your phone down or whatever it is. If the child comes to you, you need to turn the TV off, look them right in the eye. Okay, dear, what is it that you want? You have 5 minutes or whatever, but give them your full attention for 5 minutes.
That's a good tip. I was just thinking when I came from work, when I was working in corporate, and all my kids wanted attention. And it was hard.
Mhm.
because it was four of them. They're close in age, and I had to like give each other a turn, and I had to give them a short period of time, because I had to cook dinner
Mhm.
and check that the house was okay, take care of different chores, and then and be ready for when my husband comes to give him attention, or else I'm stealing from him. So it
Mhm.
was a lot of planning and thinking around that, and yes, when they're small, especially when they're small, they cannot be self-sufficient emotionally. So until they're adults, they're going to need attention. And it's not easy, because many times the attention that they want is something that you might feel it's futile, or sometimes I did this what you said, but I thought it would just help them to maybe become more patient and not feel that every time they call me they're going to get my attention. They need to wait. So that balance there, I'll tell you, it wasn't easy. So, like,
Mhm.
it's and nobody tells you these things. You're learning as a parent for the first time. So, what would you say would be more of a balanced way of seeing this for a parent, maybe, especially one that has more than one child? Your attention has to be, it's more challenging. How can you know how much attention you should give when they're all calling you? They want to show you everything and talk about everything, and you have several kids. So how do you coordinate that? What are some tips that you could give parents like this?
You need to schedule it. You need to say, you know what, hon? I'm busy. I do this at this time. I do this at this time. So, but I will be happy to listen to you between, your time is 5:20 to 5:40, whatever. For these 10 minutes, these 15 minutes, you have my full attention. But until then, I need you to let me get what I need to do to get done. Because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, they're just going to be driving you nuts all the time. And a lot of times what happens is you'll get on the phone and then the child wants to start talking to you while you're talking to someone else on the phone.
Yeah.
And you can't allow that. So you have to put your finger, you have to put your finger up
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and, and wait
It's
until you're off the phone to talk to the child. I'm on the phone when I'm done. And then just put your finger up and they keep talking. You just put your finger up and don't attend to them anymore. Because otherwise, you're going to be frustrated and annoyed all the time, especially if you have more than one, because then they play these games where, but mom gives more attention to him, or mom gives
Oh, I know
her.
that story.
You give him more attention than me. Blah 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 blah.
Yep.
You can't play that game. You absolutely can't play that game.
No, I
Well,
can't be
yeah, I'm
sucked
sorry
in.
you feel that way. I'm doing the best I can. Boom. I love you. If you don't want to believe that, what am I supposed to tell you?
Yeah.
What do you want? What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
uh, because you can't be all things to your children. And there's going to come that time. And if your children are all old enough, you already know this, Jessica, they're going to reject you. They
Yep.
get to be around 12 or 13. It's like, get out of here, mom. You bug me.
Yeah.
Get out of here, dad. You bug me. And you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not whatever enough. You're not as good as so and so's parents. And then and that's a natural thing that
Yes.
happens
Yes.
because they have to quote unquote divorce their parents because they need to grow up. They need to grow up, so they have to stop seeing parents as super people and
Thank you
realize,
for
wait a minute,
saying that.
they're
Yep.
human. They're human. And Mark Twain said my father was the most ignorant man in the world when I was 15. And when I turned 21, I was amazed how much he'd learned in 6 years.
Wow. I love it. I love it. I think that it's important that parents understand that. I remember being told that I should have maybe studied a little bit more about the psychology of children and the different phases of growing that they go through. In the beginning, it was, I would say almost every 6 months or so, they would change. Like they would start a new phase. So as I started to adapt to the new phase, it changed again. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I have to learn how to maneuver this, this new terrain. And of course, with four, it was all four of them, and no warnings. It just starts, and you're like, where did that come from? And so it's a place where parents need to learn how to navigate maybe the unforeseen. But I think that learning a little bit about the psychology does help. That did help me. It helped me also to know what to expect when they became teenagers, because that was something that I feared. Because we all know that's a phase that's very challenging. And I fear that. So I try to really prepare myself as much as I possibly could, because you can't completely, but much as I possibly could, to the years that were coming. And now all four of them are teens, so I'm dealing with all of that. But thank goodness I've had a lot of mentors and coaches and reading and studying and support system that can really help to navigate through those different challenges, you know. So that's crucial. So what would you say about that part, about preparing for that stage of life, about teenagers? Do you think that parents can prepare well for it, and how can they do it?
You know, you bring up a good point, but Jessica, we can't prepare for everything. One day at
Mm-hmm.
a time. You know what? Just do your best today. If you do your best today, tomorrow's going to take care of itself. If you made a big mistake yesterday or today, do your best to make up for it and move on with life. You know, like you said, you have four kids. Okay, one day you try something, it works really well. The next day it doesn't work at all, and it's the
Mm-hmm.
same kid.
Yeah.
Or you try it with one kid and it works, and you try it with the other and it backfires completely.
Yeah.
You know, constantly as parents throwing spaghetti at the wall and looking for what sticks. You know, if you love your children and you're trying to do your best, what more can be expected of us? You know, do your best today. That's all we can do. There's no such thing as the perfect parent. And sometimes I'm thinking, you know, if you're trying to be the perfect parent, there's no such thing as perfection.
Right.
You're a human. And part of raising our children is raising ourselves. How much have you learned about yourself by raising your children?
Hmm.
That's the way of the world. That is
Yeah.
the way of the world. So every time you do something new, you learn about yourself. And boy, oh boy, raising kids is certainly something new every day. You know, every day you hear about the stories that some people are going through with their children. It's like, whoa. And you know, also, Jessica, I know people who never drank in their lives. Their children are addicts. I
Wow.
know
It's
people
sad.
who are you know just the nicest, kindest people. Their children are narcissists and just horrible human beings. So there's you can't blame everything on parents.
No. Yeah.
There's society, there's TV, there's movies, there's school, there's other people,
Mm-hmm.
there's news, there's so many things. Music,
Mm.
you know. I mean, listen to music these days. Good Lord. And then I'm going back to Led Zeppelin years ago. We thought they were so fabulous. I was listening to the words, some Led Zeppelin songs. I was like, oh my goodness.
Wow. And sometimes they're not even paying attention, but we're
Oh,
being influenced, you know, without us even knowing. Yeah.
exactly.
You're right.
Exactly.
You're right.
So all we can do is our best, you know. And if you want your best for your children and you're trying every day, what more can we ask? You know, of course you want to learn some stuff. Great. It helps to learn, but I can't get prepared for everything. You know, I got to live too.
Right. Thank you for saying that. I think that's a very good takeaway for parents who are listening to us today. That's very important to look to the good that you do. Like I message my children, you know, or make sure that they're okay, make sure that, you know, and I feel good about that, and not look for everything that you possibly did not do. I think that positive outtake, and that also is a good lesson for the children. So they're
Exactly.
not becoming a perfectionist or too hard on themselves, and at the same time, look for the good in everything they do, no matter what situation or responsibility they have. So that's a good takeaway. Martha, tell us a little bit more about your book.
Yes, you can raise happy, responsible children. It came from my own struggles with my son. Oh, Lord, Jessica, when he was 4, that kid was spoiled because we thought the way you raise a happy child is you never say no. And then
Oh,
when we did say no, he didn't believe us. Why would he? So he would push, and then we'd change our no to a yes. Oh, it
oh,
was miserable. We were all miserable. So I got a lot of info. I took parenting lessons, and every week they said, okay, work on this, work on that. And I said to myself, no matter, you know, I'm going to do whatever they tell me to do. As long as it doesn't involve hurting my son or saying anything mean to him,
mm-hmm.
I'm going to do what they tell me to do. And of course, it was all stuff that was good and positive, and it totally changed our lives. 6 weeks, 6 weeks from a rotten, spoiled child to a very pleasant, cooperative young man.
Wow.
And he's grown up. He's a successful businessman. He has his own business now. And yeah, you know, as we can go through his schooling years, and I always paid attention. But if you just do what you need to do, one step at a time, it's all going to work out. And you can take the worst behaviors, and if you can't eradicate them completely, you can put a really big dent in them to at least make the child livable. You can live with the child and their behavior.
Yes, yes.
And that's a lot of that is what's in my book. And the book is only 60 pages. It's endorsed by Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul. Jack said, this book has the potential to transform the lives of families worldwide. And why did he say that? Because all it is boom, boom, boom. If you go to the grocery store, what do you do if the child runs away? You're driving, the child takes a seatbelt off, and you're in the middle of the road. What do you do? So it's just boom, boom, boom. Here's what you do. Here's how you preserve your marriage, because the marriage is the main relationship. Mom and dad really want to preserve, if that's their goal, that marital relationship, because the kids are going to grow up and be gone. So yeah, that's important too. But it's only 60 pages. Here's what you do to have a smart child. Here's what you do at the grocery store. Here's what you do nighttime. Here's a cute, good nighttime routine.
That's awesome. Straight to the point.
Yeah, to the point. We're parents. I don't have time to waste, honey.
That's right. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Share with our listeners, Martha, how they can have access to your book, access your social media, how they can contact you and your training.
Great. Well, I do have a 4-week course for parents, 1 hour a week on Zoom, and I really recommend it because we are going to get some changes in your children if you're dealing with some really things that are bothering you. But you can find me on marthaburich.com, and you can find me on Facebook, Martha Burich, Instagram, LinkedIn. I also have a YouTube channel, YouTube at Martha Burich Parenting. And I have a Facebook group, Mastering Child Behavior. So there's tons of ways to find me, and it'll be under the show notes too, right?
Yes, absolutely. Very exciting. And I love when you just said 4 Zoom classes. That's so cool. Like really already boxed in, perfect, straight to the point way of helping the parents, and they can start changing that immediately. So that's awesome. It's amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that. If you're watching this show, make sure you click the like button, share this with other parents so they can also benefit from everything that Martha has to do, as well as this channel, and subscribe. This show is brought by Forever Living, the best aloe vera juice in the world that helped transform my wellness, and produced by the I Am Beast Network. My name is Jessica Javens, and this is Jessica Javens Talk.
Baby girl, you are so pretty, 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 pretty. Baby girl, you are so pretty, 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 pretty. Females made you just to trick me, trick me, trick me, trick me. 'Cause baby girl, you are so easy, baby. The only reason that I can do tonight is 'cause I know you were invited. The only reason that the stresses can die is 'cause I thought that you would like it. I'm only gone for the secret outside because I want you to like the